Any after effects that you felt?
I looking back at it, I really don't know. Looking afterwards, yeah, maybe. I go from the standpoint, myself, back, maybe 10 years ago or so, I went, to the doctor, because I had problems with one of my legs, and they did a, x-rays and CAT scans and all the type of tests, right? And then I'm back on the follow-up, appointment. And the nurse comes out, the head nurse, and says, "Do you know you have metal in your back?" And I go, "No, I don't have any metal in my back." And she goes, "Well, the doctor wants to talk to you about it." Then the doctor sits in and says, "Well, you got this little piece of metal in your back. It's right in your spine. And yeah, I asked him, I said, "Can it be removed?" And he goes, "I could probably remove it, but you'll be in a wheelchair if I do." Well, I kind of, brushed it on my mind, and I kind of years went by and I forgot about it. But then all of a sudden, one of my sons got in trouble where I had to go to court every month with him for a year. Every year going into the courthouse, the alarm would go off. It would go off with no money on me, no coat on me, no belt on me. It just would go off. And they would take their...
And prior to this, that never happened? It didn't happen that way prior to this?
Well, before that, they weren't doing that.
I got you.
Yeah. Okay. And then, I'd gone to the airports. I mean, twice it's happened to me in my life since then in an airport. One time I actually got put in a little room and, had to get naked and had to have a search. And, they were trying to find something and they couldn't find it. What can I say? I don't know what it is. I did have tailbone because I fractured that when I was in the service and they had to put it back together. But this was 6 inches above my tailbone and where there was no surgery, no scar, no nothing. So I don't know if that came from that night. I didn't even think, honestly, I didn't even think about this. I was talking to another guest a few nights ago. And we were talking about, abductions. I had a guest on who was Dr. Lear's ninth patient of removal of implant. And it started making me wonder now, maybe that occasion, of what happened in the middle of the desert. Maybe something happened. I don't know.
Well, it seems so strange because your wife was with you, so it's not like time went away or.
I don't know. So, okay.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true.
Another little thing, just to tell you, time stands still. I mean, how do you evaluate time? I remember when I got hit in a vehicle head on, and I was strapped to the van's, the seat, all buckled in. And the seat bolts, I got hit so hard, the seat bolts that hold the seat snapped off. And I saw myself in slow motion fly real slow to the back of the van. I watched the van, the front of the whole van, kind of crimple in, the motor come back towards me. And I saw it all real slow when it was only a nanosecond. But I saw all this stuff, and it was really eerie.
But how many times you hear that? Yeah. People say that happens all the time, where everything slows up like that. Yeah. And life passes before your eyes and all that.
Well, it did because...
I'm not sure. Well, that metal thing is kind of weird, though. That metal thing is it's really, really strange.
Yeah. Really strange. Well, it's definitely documented with many doctors. And,
But you were in... what branch of the Army or military were you in?
I was Special Forces.
Okay, were you ever shot?
No.
So it's not like it could have happened that way. Where
no, I never had.
You just never knew it.
No, I never had any punchers. No, nothing. No, absolutely not.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Who knows? Well, don't you? I mean, then they scan it? Can't they tell you what it is?
They just said there's a metal object embedded into my spine, And I don't remember what the size of it is. Like I said, if I would have been into the paranormal, at that point, like I am now, I probably, could answer a lot more questions about it than what I can. All I know is that there's a piece of metal object in my spine that they said they can't be removed because it's actually scar tissue and membranes all around it. So, I mean, what
I remember there was one of your guests mentioned how, what was it? He tracked alien abduction stories, and he was the one who said it seemed to a person that each person they abducted had some sort of psychic ability, he said, right?
Yeah, I remember
him
that.
saying that?
Yeah.
Okay. It was interesting because beginning tomorrow on the podcast, there's a gentleman, and one of his stories has to do with his mom was psychic, and she disappeared from their apartment for 2 hours. There was a flash, she was gone. 2 hours later, there was a flash, she was back. She thinks no time has gone, and the two kids, they were young, but they remember this. And they're going, "Where were you?" And she's going, "What are you talking about?" I've always been here. It's like, look at your watch. We're 2 hours later, and it was always a mystery to her. And as I said to him, I said, according to the guest on your show, is that there was some, I don't know why, I have no idea why someone would be more interested in somebody who had psychic abilities than somebody else. I don't get that, but I said, it is kind of interesting. Your mom had, and she, proved the point that she was psychic. So whatever that's about, that's kind of a mystery to me. I'd never heard that before.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's, so unique about the paranormal and so many different things. I mean, boy, I could write, sometimes I feel like I could write a book just from the standpoint of all the people I've talked to. I'm sure you feel that way too. I mean, you hear all these, stories of things that happen to people, good and bad. And it just, I'm overwhelmed sometimes. I can tell, just like you can, pretty much when somebody's blowing smoke. And, but I treat everybody, with respect. I let them say what they want to say. But, I do believe there are angels. I do believe some people are more, I guess, in tune to their own body and their mind more. And maybe that's the people that, I don't know.
I think, it goes beyond angels. In my world, there are some things that have happened that I just feel, as you do, there are certain events that you go, why isn't that given more attention? Why is it that the UFOs over Phoenix, a few years back, whatever it was, it took how many months before it got released, and then suddenly it was okay to talk about? It's like, why does it take so long when so many people know about this kind of stuff? Why does it take so long for it to be known? One of the things, are you familiar with Our Lady of Guadalupe, the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe?
Yes.
Does that ring any bells with you?
Yeah.
Okay, because I want the science in this. I find the science so fascinating, as you do in the world of UFOs and all of that, the science in this stuff. This is something that happened in 1531 in Mexico, where supposedly this woman, Mary, mother of Jesus, appears to this guy, Juan Diego. And she says, and she wants a church built on a certain hill, and go tell the bishop kind of thing. Well, the bishop doesn't care and all that. So what she does is she gives him a bunch of roses. She piles a bunch of roses in December. In December, she has roses. And she puts them in his cloak. It's called a tilma. It's made out of cactus. Really cheap, should last, 20, 30 years maybe. And she just puts them in the tilma, arranges them, and says, go take this to the bishop. So he goes and takes it to the bishop and unfurls his tilma in front of the bishop. And left on his tilma is this image. It's kind of a selfie of Mary as Our Lady of Guadalupe. That image converted 9 million pagan Aztecs. Why? Because the imagery on it said that she was from heaven, that she was a virgin, and that she was pregnant with God, basically. She was pregnant. And through all the imagery, through the colors, through the flowers that were on the thing, all of this kind of stuff. Okay, so that, because it just came, and everybody knew it was real. Everyone knew this was a real story. There was the authenticity was there, that it converted these people that were sacrificing their children to the gods and converted them to Christianity. Okay, so that's fine in and of itself. This is 1531. But then comes the science part. As we get into the 20th century, they can now really look at Our Lady of Guadalupe. Here's what they found out. The substance the image is made out of, they don't know what it is. It's not earthly. They don't know what it is. The image of this lady is 98.6 degrees. It's like she's alive. The stars that are in the image, that are behind her, just happen to be exactly where the constellations were located on that day, December 12th, 1531. Only not from Earth looking up to the sky, but from like heaven looking back down to Earth. It's inverted because she's from heaven. Then you get into the eyes. When they now look into her eyes, and by the way, this tilma has now lasted almost 500 years. It should have dissolved, ages ago, but it hasn't. Inexplicable. Then they look into her eyes, and now science can look like where the retinas would be. There is an image in her eyes of what was going on in the room as he unfurled the roses from his cloak. You see Juan Diego, you see the bishop, you see there's a room full of people that are in there, and it's in both eyes. This is science proving the point here. And you just look at that. You want to talk about paranormal. My Lord. To me, that's one of those things where there should be, flares going off every December 12th saying, just a reminder what happened back in 1531, because look what science has done with this. I just think that's just crazy amazing. That's the part that gets me excited, because it proves the points of what I'm about.
Well, then how about where the blood is in a dried form that all of a sudden will liquefy, once a year?
Oh, the saint where that happens, where on certain days, there's only certain dates where that, I can't remember his name now. I was reading that article a while back.
Yeah.
Well, try this one. I love this. For Catholics listening, this one's for you. In the 8th century in Italy, there's a priest celebrating Mass, and he's doing the consecration. This is the part where he says, "This is my body, this is my blood," standing in for Jesus, if you will. The consecration where Catholics believe that it actually becomes Christ. It's not bread and wine anymore. It actually becomes Christ, real presence. So he's saying the words of consecration, but in his mind, he's going, I don't know. Even he as a priest going, I don't know if this is real or not. He's doubting. At that moment, all of a sudden, the bread, the host, got fleshy, and the wine began coagulating, and he stopped the Mass. He stopped the Mass, said, "Come up here and look at this." And they all looked at this. And it's like, is this what we think this is? Did this just become what we say it becomes? And so they wrapped it up and saved it for centuries. So now we get to the 1970s, and now you can do DNA testing and things like that. So they get the bread, which is now this chalky, brownish, yellow stuff, and they take a little slice of it, and they send it off to an independent lab. They don't say what it is. They just send it off. And back comes the DNA report. And the DNA, so they say, well, this is human DNA, and it comes from a particular part of the body. It comes from a human heart. This is a piece of somebody's heart. And it's type AB blood, same type blood that is found on the shroud.
Oh, wow.
So you take that, it's stunning. I know, it's absolutely stunning. So now, as if that wasn't enough, this isn't the only time this has happened, Gary. So now we get to 1996, I believe, from the diocese that would give us Pope Francis down in Argentina. A host during communion, that was found, it was either somebody dropped it or it was found on the floor or something. Well, anyway, you can't just throw those away. You either consume it or you put it into water so it dissolves, and then you can discard the water. It's no longer Eucharist. So somebody drops the host, and they put it into water, and they put it in the tabernacle, and it should dissolve, but it didn't dissolve. It got bloody. It actually got bigger and fleshy and bloody, and it's like, what the heck is this? They saved it. They saved it for 3 years. They didn't tell anybody. They saved it for 3 years, and after 3 years, they said, okay, let's test this. Let's see what this is. So once again, and they brought in, I think, a doctor that was in part of this. They brought in all kinds of scientific folks for this. And they take a little piece of that host, and they send it off to an independent lab, and they say, what is this? Back comes the report. Well, that's human DNA. That actually comes from a person's heart. It